Hi, I'm Carole,
And I'm Carolyn,
and I teach high school English,
and I teach high school drama.
and we are often caught up in the
Drama
drama
of
of the
the drama.
drama. This week, we had the opportunity to see the play, the world premiere play of Artemisia at the South Camden Theater Company in Camden, New Jersey.
By Lee Kiszonas.
She was the playwright and the director.
Yes.
So, what did you think of it?
I really enjoyed the show this time. I thought that for a world premiere, what fascinated me as I was watching it was I wanted to go home and learn more about the artist.
Right.
Because I actually enjoy historical fiction, and I found her fascinating.
Right, and that's what I did. I went home. I knew nothing about the play is about Artemisia Gentileschi.
Yes.
And I knew nothing about her until we walked into that theater, and so I went home and started researching her. And as a woman, she is fascinating.
Absolutely.
She was painting in Italy in the mid 1600s. She was a painter who sort of followed in her father's footsteps, and her whole story about her relationship with men and the one man that we actually see in the play, Tassi, and their relationship with each other in real life, and then what happens to her afterwards. I thought it was just truly, really fascinating. And what I really found fascinating was looking, I went online and could look at her paintings. And the images that she painted of women, to me, were pretty profound. She paints a lot of her paintings of women are Madonna images with baby Jesus, and then she has this contrast of the Madonna with these women in these very violent kind of scenes with these big swords, and they're using the swords or they're holding the swords in this pretty dramatic way. And I got really intrigued by who she was as a woman, and it sort of made the play then sort of meld together in my mind.
Right. And for me, I think that first of all, this is the season South Camden is doing a series of plays by women. And I thought that this was a really interesting choice in terms of her real story, which I just read on Wikipedia, which we tell our students not to use. Mm-hmm. But from the story that she kind of meshed the artwork into her story, and so that Susanna, who is a character in one of her paintings, becomes a character in the play.
Right. And so the paintings of Artemisia's that I found really sort of intriguing to me was the one Suzanne and the Elders.
Yes.
And then she does she has several paintings called Judith and the beheading of Holofernes. And then she has several different interpretations of Judith and the maidservant. And the one painting, I don't want to give away too much of the play, but you kind of have to. But the final scene of the play is taken directly, the way it was staged is taken directly from Judith and Holofernes and this whole
the Magdalena also. I looked at that painting, which they reference in the play, that her hand is at her breast.
Right, and he even says something about, and you're going to paint her foot, and she's barefoot in the painting. Yeah.
Right, which I thought was really fascinating. And to go back and to discuss what Lee Kiszonas did as a playwright and a director, I found it fascinating that she was able to kind of recreate those portraits, some of them on stage. So if you go and look at the artwork, you're seeing those images.
Right.
It was staged so beautifully. Well, first of all, let's talk about the set again.
All right. So I'm going. You and I talked about this earlier. I'm going to just say it. I think Bob Bingaman is probably one of the best, if not the best, set designers working in the South Camden, South Jersey, Philadelphia area. The Savannah Sipping Society, that set was unbelievable, and this set, for this play, it was literally breathtaking.
Yes.
Right.
Just the lighting with the set,
Yeah.
and the use of color,
Yeah.
and these costumes. It was painting pictures on the stage for us.
Right. And researching Artemisia, there's this, she uses, one of her trademarks was blue, like
Right.
different shades of
Yes.
blue. And the lighting director had taken this sort of very, tranquil color of blue and sort of washed the set in this blue. And it sort of was a contrast, this tranquility of the blue color with the violence that was happening on the stage. Really, I thought, to me, was
Right.
really
And
what
I-
made the play.
Kind of like the scaffolding, it gave the effect of a 16th century,
Yep.
16th century Italy. It just, I at first when I saw the frames, so there's reference to this artwork, but you never see
See
the
it,
artwork
right.
because the artwork is described within the piece. I thought that was fantastic.
Well, and Bob takes this very intimate space and makes it seem like it's huge,
Exactly.
right? And there's not a piece of it missing, that's not used.
And he gives the director these levels where
Correct.
they have different levels to play these scenes in.
Yes.
And I think that's so important to make these pictures and to make the show interesting in this very intimate space.
Right. And you never feel like you're crowded.
No,
Right.
not at all.
Yeah. I
Not at all.
And the way this tapestry comes dropping down,
Yes.
and it was just, to me.
Right. And so let's talk about some of the performances. There was
Okay.
Nicole Henderson, who played Artemisia.
Yes.
She was really wonderful with Marielle Rosati, who played Susanna. So she had created, as the playwright, and that's why it's historical fiction, she created this kind of relationship between these
Correct.
two women.
Right.
And then Tazi, played by Dame Vernon, who is, sort of in the middle of this relationship
And you don't like him
No,
because
you
you're
don't.
not
and you're not supposed to
right,
like him.
right.
And the reality is that character in the real story, was sent to jail for 2 years for raping her.
Right.
So
And if according to the pieces that I've read, possibly impregnating her.
right.
Right. So she has this child in real life, with this man that raped her.
Right.
And I do think that the playwright did a good job of sort of showing that the characters and the actors did a really good job of showing that anger between, and just that hate that they had for this man.
I agree,
Yeah.
but they also kind of defined their relationship very well between the two women, of what they wanted from each other. And I thought that that the other characters within the play, who were added to the story, in a way that, so what I read about her is that Tazi's, the story talks about Maria Tazi's wife in this play,
Right.
and I don't think that really existed, but the playwright took a little bit of the history and just kind of tweaked it in
Right.
different ways to add this kind of suspense
Right.
to the story, and to give them purpose, and strong objectives as characters of what they needed to do to eliminate this
Right.
this guy.
And you and I talked about one of the most fascinating pieces of the staging for me was that you have this action going on the stage. So you have Artemisia and you have Susanna most of the time interacting with each other on stage. Once in a while the father comes in, once in a while Tazi comes in, but they're really on stage most of the time by themselves. And up in the scaffolding up at the top, there's either Tarquina, who is friends with Susanna,
Right.
or Prudesia,
Who's her daughter.
who we find out is her
daughter.
daughter. And they're sort of up there in the dark. You can see them and they're there, sort of hovering over what's happening.
Right. At one point, she was holding, and I believe the actress's name is Mackenzie Jones Clifford, was
Right.
holding the lantern.
Right. Yeah.
And she was never a distraction to me.
No, not at all.
But it's almost like they're listening to the story.
Right.
And they're,
well, they were the periphery of the story, right?
Yes,
like
I agree.
they were the tangential pieces of the story. And because in English everything is symbolic, her holding that light, it was sort of like she was, as the audience, we were gaining insight, or she was shining the light on who these two women truly was or were. And we, later we find out that she's the daughter of Susanna, that Susanna has given to this other woman to raise because of her lifestyle. She didn't want that lifestyle. And Prudenzia sort of is attracted to Susanna and wants that lifestyle anyway, right? And so I just thought the whole sort of triangle of these women
it was part of the staging. So things were, I noticed, done in triangles, but on these angles that made it so interesting to watch. And so even though somebody was up there in the dark, they weren't the distraction. But then these, there would be these moments with either the, Artemisia and Susanna and Tazi, or the women, three women, or they just kind of moved in these groups of threes.
And the use of the piece that was violent. It was violent, but it wasn't violent to a point where it was shocking or that you had to look away.
Right. And I, having read the script before, I found it fascinating how they were going to stage some of this.
Well, there's the one sex scene. Right. And I too was sort of thinking, this is going to be like,
how are you going to do
How are you going to do that? It was, I in my mind, I couldn't, I just couldn't figure it out.
But what she did was, again, this goes back to this whole idea of the rape of Artemisia in the historical story. So in a way, she put the staging was really great. She put her in the front. She put her out front so that we would be watching her and getting her reaction as he's behind this gate, And so we are able to see the pain and the suffering in her face,
contrasted with his pleasure. Right.
Yeah. And I have to say again, Nicole Henderson, that's quite a role to have, and she handled it stellar.
Right. I was, and when they do, the couple of times, Susanna is the woman, and again, I was fascinated by this whole piece of it. Susanna's the one who procures the knife, right? Not once, but several times. And she's constantly pulling these knives out from her boot, from her breast, from her waistband. And it made me sort of think about, I think politically in the climate that we're in right now, it's a accurate sort of depiction that we have these women who are, I don't know if they're carrying knives, but they're speaking out and they're standing up for themselves in a way. And in her world, she's doing that. And if you look at Artemisia Gentileschi's paintings, many of the paintings have these women, boldly holding these knives, or they're at the men's neck, or they're literally, slicing their throats open. And you and I were talking about this years ago. There was an article that I read by this woman, doesn't matter, D.A. Clark, but and the title of the article was "A Woman with a Sword," and her whole premise was men don't attack men because they're afraid that men will fight back. Men attack women because there's no repercussions to it. And she was advocating, not that I'm advocating this, but her point was we should all be carrying swords. We should all be walking around so that when the time comes and we have to fight and defend ourselves, we can. And I found that really interesting for me, especially in the play and in the paintings, that in 1659, when Artemisia was painting, that she sort of had this understanding And when you look at the paintings, especially paintings of Judith and her maidservant, that series of paintings, it's very reflective of the relationship that we saw of Artemisia and Susanna in this play. It's sort of, they're both, even though the title is Judith and their maidservant, they're both very equal. In the paintings, they're up front equal, their heights are equal. And it sort of played out that even though Susanna was the helper or the servant, Artemisia treated her
as an equal.
And if you're going by what happens in the play, loved her as an equal.
Right. And it hints at a relationship between the two women.
Right.
Which causes Tazi to be jealous in many ways, that he that kind of sets him off.
Right.
But in a way, and it's so subtle. I think it was more subtle in the performance than it is in the actual script.
Correct. I agree.
So what I liked about that was that, it's almost like they're working against him. I can't. But you get the impression that there is a love between these two women, and that's really important, even though they're from two different worlds. Susanna's a much stronger.
Yes.
Susanna's the much stronger woman.
And I didn't always trust her. Right. And like there are moments in the play where you don't know if she's true to Artemisia, if she's true to Tarquina and Prudesia, if she is really, true to Tassi. There are these moments where you're not real sure where her allegiance is.
But I think, and I'm going to say this, I think it is what the actress created on stage that did that. I really enjoyed her performance.
Right,
and it's Marielle Rosati. I thought that the subtlety of her relationships with all those characters was what made you feel that way about her, because I did too. At the beginning, she's very when she first meets her and she's reading and wearing her blue dress, and she's flirting with Artemisia, and you don't know how she really feels. Right. But I thought it was the actress who created that so well.
And there, she's constantly lying, and she's constantly lying to everybody. But I think by the end of the play, you understand that everything that she did, the choices that she made, even though she seems like, and again, I agree, it was the way the actress portrayed this in a good way, right? She comes across as this sort of hard woman. You realize at different moments that she's really not. Like when you understand she gave her daughter to this woman to raise because she knew she could not. Or, when she goes to Tassi and she says, take me, leave her alone, take me, you wonder, like at first I was wondering, oh, she's just, playing Artemisia, but then by the end of the play, you truly understand that her allegiance is truly to Artemisia.
Right. Yeah. And I just have to commend the South Camden Theater Company for not only, it's a world premiere, so taking a risk on a new playwright, which I don't think we get to see very often.
Right.
I think is so important to let these new voices come out and not worry about people wanting to see the standard stuff, but putting this new work out and doing this kind of a little bit of a risky production.
Right. Well, you and I talked about when we were coming home who's the audience for this play, and I think we are the audience that they're trying to attract to come to this play, right? I mean, it's it is risky. There's a lot of sexual innuendo and a lot of sexual blatancy, right? I mean, and violence. But it's all done
so well.
Well, and it's all done under this understanding of these women are empowered through their relationships with each other.
So pertinent to times today. to go see something like this.
Right.
And the fact that after we saw it, that we were in the car discussing it and Googling Artemisia on our phones and learning about her and asking questions about the relationships we saw in the play.
Right.
That's what theater is supposed to do.
Right. And there's some paintings I found there's some of her paintings are in Brooklyn. Probably, this summer I'm going to go up to Brooklyn and take a trip and stop in and see them, right? And you're right. That's what it's supposed to do.
That's what theater's supposed to do.
It's supposed to expand your world and open it up to things that you would normally not think about, talk about, or engage in your normal everyday life.
And so I think that this production of Artemisia does all of that.
Right.
And I hope that Lee Kiszonas has a chance to get it to do it again after this, and that other people will look into this play because it was really fantastic.
I agree,
production.
and
so go see it.
Go see it.
Go see it.
Take the time and go see it and think about what you're seeing there. It's not something that you're going to sit and it's mindless and you can sit there for an hour and a half and just not think. It's constantly making you think. It's constantly making you feel emotional. There's moments that I was angry. There were moments that I was like, I wanted to jump up and knock Tassie out.
Exactly.
But I think that you're right. That's what theater is.
That is what theater is supposed to do, and I think that South Camden's doing a great job.
I think they are, and I'm looking forward to the next show.
Yep.
Right.
So,
can I eat my cake now?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
So until the next time,
all right.
Break a leg
and eat cake. Really good.
Is it? Thank you, Green Sleeves.
Mm-hmm.